here we have a specimen from the early 2000s, a legacy investing platform. Please don't touch the exhibit, folks. It could crash.
Ready to step out of the financial history museum? At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
I'm Molly Roberts.
And I'm Drew Goins. Each Friday on Impromptu, we talk through the questions we can't stop thinking about.
Do we need to rethink how much we drink?
Why are companies really asking workers to come back to the office?
Does boycotting a business actually work?
Should we quit social media?
We're here when the news gets personal and the headlines hit home.
Join Molly and me every Friday on Impromptu from Washington Post Opinions.
Find Impromptu wherever you get your podcasts.
Ooh, later with Mo Kelly. Okay, AM 640.
In today's political climate, I often encounter people who blindly support whatever the party leadership supports. No real understanding of actual issues, just blind support. No consideration of whether something is an actual principle or just a naked political act. I'm real big on principles. But I bet you didn't know this. As of 2020 and since, Liberty University was the fourth fastest growing endowment in the country and outpaced all Ivy League schools. And you don't have to take my word for it. That comes straight from the university website. And Christians don't ever lie, so it must be true. Liberty University also has 600 students from 75 different countries. Liberty University's then president, Jerry Falwell Jr., pumped millions of the nonprofit religious institution's funds into Republican causes and efforts to promote the Trump administration. And Falwell formally endorsed Trump in the 2020 cycle. Liberty University receives close to $1 billion in federal funding. You know, Pell Grants, financial aid packages, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. It also spent more than $200,000 in lobbying just last year. And although it's a private Christian university, it is and has always been overtly political and anti-Democratic Party politicians and their causes. None of what I just told you is illegal, nor is it debatable. BYU's endowment is 50% healthier than Liberty's and features double the amount of foreign students. But publicly, BYU is politically neutral. Like I said at the beginning, I'm real big on principles, and I'm really, really, really big on people answering simple yes/no questions. So here we go. Here's the question, and it's a very simple one. Is it now acceptable for sitting presidents to go after individual universities or institutions for not being in political alignment with him being the president? Of course, I'm making a comparison to the Trump administration and Harvard University. But before you answer, remember this. Supposedly, this was always and only about whether Harvard had addressed the alleged anti-Semitism on its campus in the wake of the pro-Palestine and Gaza protests in recent history, protecting Jewish students. But there were no federal lawsuits levied against Harvard by the DOJ Civil Rights Division, which is designed to address exactly those things. Just trust me, I studied this. There were no federal criminal charges against any staff or university administration official as to criminal conduct. To put it another way, there was nothing that anyone could point to as wrongdoing on the part of Harvard in a civil or criminal sense on a federal level. So there's no legal predicate here. Not illegal, not a civil rights violation. No laws were involved here. So that only leaves, say it with me, politics. Just politics. So back to my simple yes/no question. Is it now acceptable for sitting presidents to go after individual universities for not being in political alignment with him, the president? I'm talking about the person. Not the law, but the person or personal politics. Because this would mean the next Democratic president, and there will be one someday, but the next Democratic president could conceivably strip Liberty University of its $750 million in federal funding, or say not teaching about the gay rights movement, or not teaching critical race theory. Oh my God. You'd be okay with that, right? Or we could say Liberty losing all of its federal funding for not handing over conduct records of its international students when demanded, regardless of reason. You'd be okay with that, right? Or how about this? Try to strip Liberty of its tax status as a nonprofit tax-exempt institution for engaging in political lobbying, which I said it did, and endorsement of political candidates, which it did, and it's part of the public record. You'd be okay with that, right? Because all of that has been attempted by the Trump administration with Harvard. Just talking about apples to apples. I know, that must be different. No, it isn't. Like I said, no law has been broken, no legal implication involved, except for the countersuits by the university against the president. These are super simple questions because I need to know if your support is for the principles or just the person and their politics. Because you can't support President Trump's personal war against Harvard on principle and also not see how Liberty University, just for example, could be ended and forced to close its doors for good.
You know what's great about your investment account with the big guys? It's actually a time machine. Log in and zoom. Welcome back to 1999. It's time for an upgrade. At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind at Public.com. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
There's an efficient way to get caught up on a lot of news. It's called The Seven from The Washington Post. It's a newsletter and podcast. Whether you're reading or hit play, you get 7 stories you need to know, and you can consume it all in just a few minutes. The Seven is out every weekday morning by 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'm one of the writers, and I host the show. Find The Seven podcast wherever you're listening. The newsletter link is waiting for you in the show notes.
Just by using the same yardstick and same tactics. Because it just seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, doubt it, but it just seems to me that some people just like freedom of speech just as long as you get to tell people what they're free to say. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're okay with private universities having autonomy and being able to enroll foreign students just as long as the federal government and the president that you like dictate the terms. Be clear, we're not talking about visas. The federal government has told Harvard University it cannot enroll international students without its approval. That's wholly different from visas. We're talking about enrollment. Are you ready to lie to me tonight and say that you would have been okay with Joe Biden telling Liberty University who it can or can't admit at the institution? Go ahead, lie to me. It's like the whole idea of small government/government overreach is not really a principle, but a clothing style, which might change with the season. Stylish today, maybe not after next election. To support this war on Harvard, on the supposed merits, and not blind allegiance to one person is to suggest that Liberty University, among others, they're fair pickings to endure the same in the future. I personally don't care. I have no educational dog in this fight. I didn't go to Harvard, but I do care about the implications. I have no idea if this is connected to the rumor that Barron Trump was denied admission to Harvard. I don't know if this is revenge for the dissolution of Trump University. I don't know. But here's what I do know, that there's a reason that the phrase, quote unquote, dangerous precedent exists. If you can't stand on principle, you can't stand at all. And principle doesn't only work in one direction, because that's a boy band, not a form of governance. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. Some time ago, we told you about how iconic singer and songwriter Smokey Robinson was being sued by 4 of his former housekeepers due to allegations of forcible rape and other forms of sexual assault over the course of many years. What I didn't tell you, since that time, detectives are now investigating to see if criminal charges will be brought in reference to the original complaint. It could get much worse for Robinson in terms of legal jeopardy, but that remains to be seen if there will be any probable cause to file criminal charges. But now Robinson on his end is striking back with a $500 million countersuit against his accusers. In Robinson's countersuit, he accuses his 4 accusers of defamation, slander, intentional infliction of emotional distress, elder abuse, elder abuse? Yeah. And invasion of privacy. Is he the elder that he's alleging who got abused? I don't know.
Well, he is elderly.
He's 85. With either lawsuit, we don't know exactly where the truth falls, but we do know that this is going to ruin the legacy of Smokey Robinson, full stop. Because in both of these lawsuits, assuming neither is dropped and neither is settled, there will be discovery and revelations which will be leaked to the press. It will be embarrassing, probably disgusting, and more. Just in the public disclosure of the complaints available to us will be more than most of us can handle. We're getting ready to learn way too much about people, sexual acts, positions, proclivities, and such of one 85-year-old man. And nobody, absolutely nobody, who is generally private wants their sex life or alleged sex life up for public consumption. I'm positive if you hear about the personal sex lives of your favorite singer, actor, entertainer, you probably won't like them much. And I hate to break it to all my fans out there who think I'm too sexy. I have an admission to make. I'm not a virgin. Stop laughing, Carnisha. I'm not a virgin. Nope, I am not. And I would not want anyone to know my kink. Yes, I have 1 or 2 or 5, but that's not the point. Only one person needs to know, and that's it. Nobody in this studio needs to know, so stop asking, Mark. No one even wants to know. I'd be mortified. I don't know if I want to get through this.
I just assumed it was Chihuahua.
I don't know if I want to get through this. I'd be mortified if my business were put in a lawsuit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about alleged criminal or illegal behavior. I'm just talking about the stuff that simply is not meant for public consumption. I don't want to know what gets an 85-year-old Smokey Robinson off, but we're getting ready to find out. And it's going to make me hear the song, My Girl, a little bit differently. Or, ooh, baby, baby. I'm going to land a little bit differently.
Just wait till you hear Tears of a Clown again.
You knew where I was going. Woo! It's not going to sound the same. My point is there are some things I just don't want to know. I don't want to know what floats Stefan's boat or Twala's or Mark's.
Yes, you do.
In this age of social media and ease of access to court documents, we're getting ready to find out way too much. Of course, that is secondary to the larger issue of whether Smokey Robinson was sexually assaulting and abusing his former staff. Let's not lose sight of that. But this is another example of trying at least to separate the artist from the artistry. But no matter how this ends, we will all lose. This was not about how the career of Smokey Robinson was supposed to end. This should have been a period of celebration as he enters his final chapter of performance and possibly life. But no, none of his accusers can come up with $500 million or any approximation thereof in this countersuit. So let's be clear. This lawsuit is about sending the message that he's going to fight the allegations. Little else, he's not actually going to recoup anything close to $500 million. But the worst part will be all the revelations, which inevitably are going to come out, no pun intended, that absolutely none of us needed to know or want to know. It's too bad that all this has to end this way, horribly, publicly, and nauseatingly. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. Bill Maher, first and foremost, he's a comedian. He is always going for the joke. He is also a provocateur, meaning he is also looking to make people feel uncomfortable. And that's fine because that's what he does. But it doesn't mean that he is above critique. On his Friday edition of Real Time with Bill Maher, in his New Rules segment, he touched upon the Diddy trial. You know, he made some jokes about Diddy and said he was a horrible guy, but not surprisingly, he pointed most of his ire at Cassie Ventura specifically and female accusers more generally in this post-Me Too world. Here's just a snippet of it.
I'm aware that it can be difficult to leave an abusive relationship. Most of what I watch on TV is the Lifetime channel. But this should be society's new grand bargain. We take every accusation seriously, but don't tell me any more about your contemporaneous account that you said to two friends 10 years ago. Tell the police right away. Don't wait a decade. Don't journal about it. Don't turn it into a one-woman show. And most importantly, don't keep f***ing him.
Bill Maher is Exhibit A as to why women then and now are apprehensive about coming forward. Because what woman wishes to be both not believed and ridiculed with her name and abuse serving as the punchline for comedians? What woman? Bill Maher conveniently left out that Cassie Ventura did try to leave multiple times. Once was even caught on tape. She was punched, kicked, and dragged back to her hotel room by her hair in broad daylight. The hotel security was bought off and the tape buried. That was just one beating, which happened to be caught on video, and it still didn't matter even when it happened. Maher has since seen that video, as you have, as I have, and it still didn't matter, and he still blames the victim. That's what she got for coming forward. Kid Cudi's car was firebombed. Ventura's family was threatened, allegedly. And Cassie's supposed to think that her life and her family's lives are not variables in how she comes forward or when she comes forward. Maher also conveniently leaves out that New York had to change the law for Ventura to come forward when she did in the form of the New York Adult Survivors Act. It was a confluence of events, the law, the surface video, the whole frickin' Me Too movement, and Diddy actually being remanded to prison and not out on bail for Cassie to testify, because the same motherfather who dragged her by her hair could have been a threat to her if he wasn't still in prison. But Bill doesn't want to talk about that. Bill wants us to make sure that he likens abuse and trapped women to a day watching the Lifetime channel. How is America supposed to take domestic violence claims seriously when Maher himself and his platform use them as a punchline? Yes, the world has changed in the past 10 years. No one can deny that. But you know who actually has not changed? Bill Maher. Here's just a sampling of the Maher headlines, which give you a sense of where Bill Maher keeps landing on these very same issues. Again, these are just the headlines. Quote, Bill Maher flat out believes Woody Allen amid sexual abuse allegations, slams actors who regret working with him.
And here we have a specimen from the early 2000s, a legacy investing platform. Please don't touch the exhibit, folks. It could crash.
Ready to step out of the financial history museum? At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
We've all done it. You see a headline but don't have time to read the whole story, or there's so much news you're not sure what is worth your time. I'm Colby Ekowitz, co-host of Post Reports, the weekday afternoon podcast from The Washington Post. Post Reports brings you what's relevant and revealing. Breaking stories, politics, wellness, culture. Each episode goes beyond a headline for the context you need. Find Post Reports now, wherever you're listening.
Bill Maher thinks Louis C.K. should be welcomed back despite sexual misconduct charges. Real Time with Bill Maher sued over allegations of sexual harassment. Bill Maher under fire for 1998 comments condoning sex between a 35-year-old woman and 12-year-old boy. Condoning. Rose McGowan accuses Bill Maher of making sexual remarks to her on his show in the 1990s. Bill Maher sued by Laura Loomer for $150 million over Donald Trump affair allegations. Do you notice the pattern? Do you? Because I sure as hell do. Men get the pass, women get the blame. Oh, you didn't hear me. Men get the pass, women get the blame. There is no equivocation between Diddy and Cassie. None. There is only one person on trial, Sean Combs, and that trial isn't even on radio, TV, or being streamed. The defense hasn't even started with their presentation, and here is Bill out here freelancing without even the pertinent facts, which are not in dispute. And he is telling Cassie indirectly to stop effing him. Bill Maher is not on the side of women, and he never will be. So he should be the last person we should listen to about what's best for women. He is why many women do not come forward. Dudes just like him. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. Here is basically an addendum to a final thought I had last week because there's now new information. It goes a little something like this. It can be said that you have fewer and fewer true friends as you age. I can attest to this. But nonetheless, there are limits to friendship. Age and wisdom don't make you omniscient or knowledgeable about the sexual habits of your friends. I know, crazy, right? You don't know what goes on in anyone's bedroom. No matter how long you might have been friends with them or party with them, you don't know what they've done, what they're doing, what they're capable of doing. Nick Poliokini put it best to me off air tonight. Somebody's yuck is somebody else's yum, and vice versa, something like that. But you don't know what that is necessarily for anyone, regardless of how long you may have been friends with someone. In fact, it's not uncommon that couples who have been married for decades are unaware of their partner's secret lives, infidelity, or time spent outside their presence. Actor Leon Isaac Kennedy has come out in support of friend of 60 years, Smokey Robinson, calling the allegations against him preposterous. Leon Isaac Kennedy is best known for being Jane Kennedy's husband and also the actor in the penitentiary movies as the boxer Too Sweet. I know, that's a deep dive. Hold on to that for Name That Movie cult classic, but I digress. In his 43-minute posted commentary today, Kennedy spoke to the attorneys on both sides of the issue and detailed his long and close relationship and history with Smokey Robinson. His friendship is admirable, and his desire to serve as a character witness understandable. But until and unless Kennedy can offer direct testimony to contradict the allegations against Robinson, Kennedy is, respectfully, irrelevant. Unless Kennedy can attest that he was a witness to one, some, or any of the alleged sexual assaults, he can't speak on anything other than that he and Smokey Robinson are close friends and nothing else. But Kennedy used his 43 minutes to try to deconstruct and delegitimize the accusations against Robinson.
Jane Doe was raped in this blue bedroom 7 times. Let me state that these women were not in the house singularly working. There were usually 2 or 3 working simultaneously.
Obviously, the women all worked together. Some of their shifts did overlap.
So there was always an overlap. So now if you were raped in this blue bedroom 1 time, why would you go upstairs and stay upstairs and be alone with this man again if you think this is going to happen again?
And you get the general point. Yes, what has been alleged goes against what he believes he knows about Robinson. It goes against his public image. But the allegations are not subject to opinions of the unrelated or popularity of the accused. Although Kennedy sought an audience in the court of public opinion, you, me, everyone else, it is not the court which will ultimately decide Robinson's fate or whether law enforcement, which will eventually file criminal charges. Smokey Robinson is going to have to ride this out all by himself in an actual court. And I like to use Tawala as my foil, but he gets why. And although we've known each other for decades, and I mean decades, I don't need or expect him to produce a 40-minute video responding to accusations or allegations about me, heaven forbid, if it should ever happen. He couldn't possibly speak to them. I don't know why he's laughing out there in the hall, but that's okay. He doesn't know about the dirt I might have done, or I wouldn't know about his unless we were in the same room when it happened. And I don't mean that in a whole Hamilton sense, in the room where it happened. And that would make him an accomplice or an accessory if it were true. The burden of proof is on the accusers here, and I can absolutely respect Leon Isaac Kennedy's desire to speak up in support of his friend. I can even get his desire to try to poke holes in the accusers' cases, but he's really not helping. He's not privy to what Smokey Robinson did or did not do in whatever room. There is no talking Smokey out of this situation. What Kennedy is seemingly forgetting is that there will be discovery. There will be text messages. There will be revelations that not even Leon Isaac Kennedy will be able to defend. And he will look foolish despite his best intentions. And that's the lesson right here for you and me and the rest of us. Even the people you think you don't know on that level, and you never will. The accusers deserve their day in court to tell their story, and Smokey Robinson deserves his day to defend himself. Kennedy thinks he's helping, but here's the point. He's not. This just might blow up in his face, and it would have been completely avoidable, even though he may have done it with the best of intentions. Smokey Robinson will have to go through this storm in a legal sense by himself. So let's let the case play out. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. A number of reputable media outlets have reported that ICE agents have been ordered to arrest more would-be immigration offenders, even without warrants. And you heard that right, even without warrants. I say would-be because we've already crossed the Rubicon, as they say, as it relates to due process. It's clear you can be arrested and deported to a country not of your origin and to a prison without having committed a criminal offense. And I'll explain that in just a second. And all that can be done without receiving any due process along the way. Here is the law, not my opinion. Undocumented presence in the U.S. without proper authorization is a civil violation, as are littering, speeding, and the like. But those undocumented individuals in the U.S. without proper authorization may also be subject to a fine, but cannot be charged with a criminal offense solely for being present without authorization. That's per federal law, not my opinion. Merely being in this country illegally is not a criminal offense. For example, you could overstay your visa. That's not criminal. The Supreme Court recently granted Trump administration the power to revoke the humanitarian parole status of people from, including yet not limited to, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Sudan, and Haiti. This means that someone's legal status can now change overnight, but there is no breaking of the law here, no criminal offense committed. It just means that those individuals no longer enjoy protected status and can be removed. No crime has been committed and should not be subject to arrest, not by law at least. Here's where it becomes criminal. It becomes a criminal offense if you are found to have illegally entered originally or re-entered the country after deportation. That's a violation of federal law. First-time offense can be a misdemeanor or felony, depending on the specific circumstances. But how do you know someone entered illegally? Oh, that requires due process. Like, how does one know that someone actually violated a speeding law or a littering law? Due process. They are inextricably linked. The only way one could determine if someone is either unlawfully in the country or overstayed a visa, i.e. documented, humanitarian parolee, or illegally entered the country is by due process, period. You don't get to just look at someone and say, oh, Mark Ronner looked like he just walked across the border, unless you are actually at the border while it's happening. And even then, there's still a form of due process. Why am I talking about all this? Well, let me go back to the top and tell you one more time the latest news. The Guardian and other reputable media outlets have reported that ICE agents have been ordered to arrest more would-be immigration offenders even without warrants. To specifically order ICE agents to arrest, which means criminal behavior, to arrest people without warrants is to instruct ICE agents to break the law. Not my law, the law. Remember, this country is supposedly about law and order. Here's what the law says about immigration arrests and warrants. ICE officers can make arrests without a warrant, but it must be in public spaces. In private spaces, they are required by law to produce a signed judicial warrant or be given homeowner consent to enter a home or private area to arrest someone. To specifically instruct ICE officers to make these arrests, even without warrants or criminal conduct, that's the key phrase, is to instruct them to wholly disregard the law and violate private spaces. Now, if you're okay with that, it's only because you think it won't happen to you or it applies not to you. And if that's the case, you need to stop lying about how important law and order or the Constitution is supposedly. The Constitution doesn't only apply to people you like or the people who vote your way. And we've covered this before. You should remember. The Constitution and its protections cover all persons within the borders of this country, not only citizens. Stop telling that lie otherwise. The only time it doesn't is when martial law has been lawfully declared. And as of yet, we're not under martial law. Maybe by next month, but not yet at least. One of the emails from ICE's acting executive associate director of ICE's enforcement and removal operations, long-ass title, his name is Marcus Charles. He instructed ICE officials to even go after people they may coincidentally encounter. Collaterals are the people ICE agents may encounter when effecting an arrest of a particular person. You know, that could be family members, that could be friends, it could be just folks hanging around the location of an encounter. Here's from the email, quote, all collateral encounters need to be interviewed and anyone that is found to be amenable to removal needs to be arrested. We need to turn up the creative knob up to 11 and push the envelope, close quote. The email said needs to be arrested despite what I just told you about the law, about mere undocumented presence not being a criminal offense. That would be like arresting people for littering. That would be like arresting people for speeding, parking violations. No exaggeration. Either this is about upholding the law or it's about disregarding it when politically expedient. It's one or the other. You know how I always say that. There is no in between. Either humanitarian parole status matters or it doesn't. It can't be only for 59 Afrikaners from South Africa, but not the Sudanese, where there is an actual and ongoing civil war, which has murdered more than 150,000 people. I tell you, we are an unserious nation. But despite that, here's the larger question. Does the federal law only serve as a suggestion? Is it for guidance sake? Is it for shites and giggles? I need to know. I hate to sound Shakespearean, but that is the question. And it's also a rhetorical one because warrantless arrests, hear me, outside the boundaries of the law are both unconstitutional and un-American. And I would be remiss, get ready to go there, if I didn't already acknowledge that the targeted revocation of humanitarian parole status of only Central American, of only South American, of only indigenous African nations is nakedly indefensible. It also only confirms this is not about who is illegally here in the country, because all of those humanitarian parolees I just told you about, they were here legally. The status of humanitarian parolee is not to be confused with criminal parole. It is a discretionary decision made by the U.S. government that allows a non-citizen to enter the U.S., even if they are otherwise inadmissible, due to urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Humanitarian parolees were here legally in this country. Revoking their statuses is only about removing who you don't want in the country, irrespective of them actually following the law to get here. Oh, and I almost forgot. I don't know if you caught the news today. The Trump administration announced a travel ban today, preventing travel into the U.S. from 12 countries. Ask me where those 12 countries are. Ask me where are those 12 countries? I know. It's America and Afrikaners first. I'm clear. And I said what I said. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly.
You know what's great about your investment account with the big guys? It's actually a time machine. Log in and zoom. Welcome back to 1999. It's time for an upgrade. At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You can even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind at Public.com. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
There's an efficient way to get caught up on a lot of news. It's called The 7 from the Washington Post. It's a newsletter and podcast. Whether you're reading or hit play, you get 7 stories you need to know, and you can consume it all in just a few minutes. The 7 is out every weekday morning by 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'm one of the writers, and I host the show. Find The 7 podcast wherever you're listening. The newsletter link is waiting for you in the show notes.